Welcome to Disconnecting from the Matrix, where the release is from within. Hello, Sovereign Creators. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Alice Kim, and today is episode 16 called Apocalypse Now. The apocalypse is more than the destruction of the world or the cataclysmic event prophesied in religious circles. It's much more intimate than that. Rather than being an external event, it's an internal transformation that uncovers and uproots all your untruths so that you can create your own new heaven and earth here and now. What is an apocalypse? The simplest definition of apocalypse is a catastrophic destruction of the world, whether it be by our own hands, the environment, by planetary forces, or what have you. But the apocalypse that most people refer to isn't so much only about the physical destruction of Earth. What most Western people associate the apocalypse with are the biblical end times, the doomsday scenario called Armageddon. It's the prophesied time of the final battle between the forces of good and evil, a time where God, returning again as Jesus, takes his final vengeance on the world. He conquers Satan, destroys all the sinners, raises the righteous dead from their graves, and swoops up all the good little boys and girls and takes them up to heaven to live with him forever. Something like that. And I think when you get to heaven, it sounds as if you sit around all day and play mandolins and harps and praise and worship God for eternity. It's kind of like being at church service, but forever. I mean, thanks, but no thanks. That shit sounds way too fucking boring for me. And I'm so glad that I canceled my ticket to heaven and decided instead to wake up and be my own savior, to free myself from the bondage of that man-made nonsense propaganda that continues to make people rejoice in glee as they judge and destroy each other and wait in bloodlust for the final hour when their insane creator comes in to punish everyone who doesn't want to join his club. Sounds pretty damn childish, doesn't it? Anyway, people have been speaking about the coming apocalypse for thousands of years. And it's so crazy because there are millions who want this, and then they get really disappointed every time these prophesied dates fail to turn into the great planetary destruction that they've been praying for. To add a little personal flavor, I was raised Christian, primarily Presbyterian, but when I was about 10 or so, my family was involved in a Baptist church for a couple of years. And do you know what they did to kids like me? They showed us a bunch of rapture movies based on the Left Behind series. And we'd sing songs about being left behind afterwards, and we'd all be a scared, crying mess by the end of the night. And there I was, scared shitless, and thinking that I was that bad little girl in the movie who was left behind because I wasn't a good enough Christian. I'd always be in fear that I'm not going to make it to heaven, and this guilt stayed with me up until my early 30s, until I finally released it. Or should I say, I exorcised it completely out of my being. That was child abuse. Religious indoctrination is child abuse. And these churches are doing a heck of a job. So the apocalypse is what most people consider the end times. And due to a heavy religious influence in our Western culture, it's often associated with the second coming of Christ as a warrior to kick Satan's ass and deliver his final judgment on who's been naughty and who's been nice. Basically, it's the final countdown to the final reckoning. And if you're on the shit list, you are so fucked because, we're talking eternal damnation in hellfire. Either that, eternal boredom in heaven playing harps and flutes and singing worship songs praising God's greatness. Is that heaven or is that North Korea? I'm not sure what's worse, heaven or hell, or heaven or North Korea. And by the way, I happen to be half North Korean. So basically, eternal punishment or eternal punishment are your only options. So what is my point today besides ranting on religion? I do have a point, and the point is this. If you can relate to anything I say in this show, then you've woken up. And if you've woken up, then you've already entered your apocalypse. Your apocalypse is happening now. The word apocalypse comes from Greek origins. Apo, meaning un, and kalupdine, meaning to cover. So together, apocalypse means to uncover or reveal. So in that regard, you can see how the book of Revelation in the Bible is about the apocalypse and is often referred to simply as Revelation or the apocalypse because they mean the same thing. So enough of Bible study for today and back to your apocalypse. You have woken up, and once you wake up, you enter your apocalypse. Not some foretold future group event where some dude with a beard in a flowing robe and sandals comes down to judge you and tell you what you are, what you're worth, and where you're sentenced for eternity. No. This is a highly individualized and profoundly personal event that occurs when the divinity that you are wakes up within you. And as soon as that lamp of your divine spark is switched on, however dimly, it starts to dispel the darkness of ignorance, the darkness of unconsciousness in your world. As the presence of your light, your consciousness starts to light up your world, it uncovers the veil of ignorance, all the untruths that have kept you unconscious, and reveals to you the truth of who and what you are, which is divine essence. I am God itself. You see, the second coming of Christ isn't Jesus. It's you. You are the Christ that first came down in human form, got a bit waylaid in this density, and temporarily forgot who you were. But with any well-designed vehicle, we created a safety feature before we got here, a built-in mechanism within us that would take us back home when the time was right. Home meaning back to yourself. Not some place like heaven. There's no such place. You are the source of all things heavenly, so why would you need to go to some place like that? It would only dim in comparison. It would only be a cheap imitation of what you already are. So, once something in you feels ready to wake up to your truth, you activate the mechanism that shows you your way back to remembering who you are. And this remembering of your Christedness, your divinity, is your second coming. Once you wake up, you can't ever go back to sleep. You can certainly delay your realization, your enlightenment, your ascension, whatever you want to call it, your freedom. But you can't undo the journey back to you. So yeah, once you wake up, you still have a choice of whether you want to go fast, go slow, or suspended for as long as you want. Lifetimes even, until you feel ready to resume your return to self. But if you choose to continue now, I don't need to explain to you that your world is obviously going to change. You chose freedom, and all the things that kept you down and stuck and lost is going to be uncovered and revealed for your release. And although I'm not saying these changes are always going to be disastrous, much of it will probably be uncomfortable, and many things will indeed be disruptive to your current version of reality to one degree or another. But whatever changes may come, it will also be an apocalypse in the conventional sense of the word, because it will be the end of the world as you knew it. It will be a cataclysm that dissolves the old, tired, false, limiting, fearful world. All sins, because sin just means unconscious, and brings in the new, inspired, free, and unlimited energy of expansion, peace, and joy. Hey, listen, we're all going to wake up. We're all going to go through our own apocalypse in our own time. Some choose to go first, like many of you who are listening. It's not a race, and we don't get extra credit for going first. It's just about how soon and how badly you want to be free. And everyone has their own preference for when that time is right. But if you so choose to claim your sovereignty now, your apocalypse is already here now. It's truly the end of time, because time ceases to exist in the eternal timelessness of now. And now is where your freedom lies, because now is the only moment there ever is. So with that, my wish is to help you who still have any fear or lingering reservations about the apocalypse, and more so about where you're headed next. At the end of it all, you're just going to simply remember yourself, and instead of going back home, this time home is coming to you. After you release all of the obstructions within the matrix or the old earth, the falsehoods of who you are not, your final integration of your human and divine essence is what you'll uncover as your I am. And this joining of the self with the small s and self with the big S is the new heaven and new earth that awaits you after your apocalypse now. There's my call. You know, I have never used the word apocalypse this many times in one sitting. I'm posting the transcript, so I wouldn't be surprised if this episode shows up as a top search result in Google for anyone who's looking for info on the apocalypse. And that's going to be interesting because chances are this will be some very unexpected information. And who knows, maybe this will be helpful. I'm your host, Alice Kim, and thanks for listening. Leave me a comment and let me know how your apocalypse is going back on the episode page at disconnectmatrix.com/podcast/16. That's disconnectmatrix.com/podcast/16. And if you'd like the transcript, you'll find it there. And while you're there, please subscribe to my email list so we can stay in touch. Also, if you're on iTunes and are enjoying this show, please consider giving it a favorable rating and review for the benefit of future listeners. To contact me directly, my email is alice@disconnectmatrix.com. I welcome all your questions, comments, and any feedback that you have. Thanks again for joining me. Until next time.